this is very quick. Is to answer the question how we identify sexual harassment misconduct, which means we believe that the hardest is that when we see that the skill of the person in charge is what exactly a degree of the misconduct should be identified. So after a lot of discussion, working very concisely on the ILO Code of Conduct, the law of Vietnam, and international standard, we came up with 5 factors that you can take a reference to consider what is misconduct and to what extent is it low, medium, or high or extreme level of seriousness. It's starting with sexual is when sexually harassed, subjective, which is come from the person, the victim would be able to report, to accuse, or authorize somebody to report for them or make grievances. The actual action, subjective. Evidence, number 3, is evidence is so important. It's like the same, everything that we talk about, you know, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard lately, right? Oh, evidence, on and on. But evidence is really, really important. And then impact of the behavior itself. Where it's likely it's just flirting, then something is sexual harassment or some not. But in the truly in the real world, if the company truly look into the real impact and tell people that this impact is unacceptable, and have to address it as the damages from that for that person, reputation, team reputation, and whole company branding, for example. Those are all impacts that we need to consider when we consider the level of seriousness. And then power. Power means here in the definition of abuse of power within your workplace. And it's really relevant to some others, you know, standard that you built in your workplace besides anti-sexual harassment. For example, if the man does truly have a power to, you know, evaluate the performance of a lady he like to harass, saying that you are really perform bad, even though last month she's good, and you have to go because you don't agree with me for me to sexually abuse you, for example, then that is really a power abuse that you have looked to all the workplace situation as well. So that if you would be able to at least put 5 factors together and measure the degree, you would be able to identify low, medium, or high, extreme, and then you would act based on this identification. I will not go through in details first, but I would like to emphasize on number 4 a little bit before I forgot. Impact, the level of frequencies, the way that the behavior repeated is also a very important way for you to identify misconduct. Not just the first time, but if it truly have happened constantly or repeatedly, that's something we have to see. We're also giving you some of the infographic you can use later your work to train for your workers, your manager, how to identify, you know, how to listing different behavior based on law, but in the infographic way, it's easier for the worker and the manager as well. In terms of what is the most important procedure, there would be a lot of procedure under the law as a requirement, and everybody talking about investigation. We talk to the audience out here, investigation is so serious word. And if empathy is the skill that we need, maybe we need to consider it's a different way to call it, because until the moment that the misconduct actually emerge, it's investigation itself already takes some person down before they considering themselves, you know, guilty. So we normally recommend 2 procedures. One is formal and one is informal. And we simply call it complainant or the accused and the neutral, who are mostly person in charge. And you can use the number that we have number here from 1 to 12 as the procedure. It's easy to look at when we're going from, you know, the red color where the complainants present grievances. The neutral receives grievances, draw up allegation, and then make sure that the accused prepare response, for example. And the neutral also advise and support both sides. Organize verbal hearing. You know, both sides can do cross question. And the testimonies, evidences, draft decision, of course, is involving a different department. And then you coming up with recommend disciplinary action or submit for final decision. All this process is actually, we would like to see this in the formal way, but including different as some other policy as well, like integrity, like, confidential, to keep that information or about the situation confidential. But we're more talking and we're more dealing with the next slide, please, with the informal grievance procedure, where, to make it short, any person in charge will be able to learn some skill, not to be the professional mediator or conciliator, but you have some sense of being fair and working at the mediator and your conciliator at work. With the two differences between these two roles is, one is you try to help both sides talk and solve the problem and come to the decision on their own. But for the mediator, we're helping them, but we don't give any proposal. We don't give any recommendation. But the conciliation, we might listen in the story, really understand the request, the problem, and then we might suggest some proposal. So both sides can take it or leave it. But they are learning about each other during this process. And we think in Vietnam and some other case, this works every time. Informal process, not investigation and formal process, with everybody try to, avoid or take a lot of work and time, to be honest, if you really go with the process. And what is the most skill people need? We already, discussed that. But our company we work with, we believe that, yes, be empathy, be knowledgeable, start learning about the status and the problem itself. Be fair and fight for the black and white. And I like this so much. It's the stop gray area. It's anything you can make it clear in your regulation, your policy, with a clear term. And we call lean thinking, which means make it simple and easy. Then it would be the best. It's in your hand. The labor law of Vietnam really say you do, procedure your own, right? Just make sure that you follow up with some, but you can do it your own, right? So go with things that make sure black and white right there. And finally, believe that culture would drive behavior. I don't have time for this, but it's a perfect, empathy model map canvas that we use to work to capture people, different responses during, situation of sexual harassment, both for victim and for accused. And you can use this one quickly and very briefly, understanding what's in their mind and how they get to their decision. Their decision always tell what you need to do next. And, oh my God, I get to number 4, the policy. We said we still need policy, but I like you to look at on the very left with the 3 keywords. Wherever policy, what I'm seeing so far is so big policy, comprehensive but lengthy, and a lot of writing, and it's confusing. We used to work with some international NGO, policy. It's mixing. There's a different procedure here with different procedure there, but there's still same people dealing with the 2 procedure and 2 policy separately. So it's no way you could have enough human resources for that. So it should be accessible, really get people understand with lean languages, clear, black and white, infographic, please. Consistent. Consistent is something that we see that most of the policy right now in labor field is very much in overlap. And it's really worth for you to see how it should be consistent and then fix it. And lastly, if you truly do this aggressive enough, don't do it halfway. Because when you do it halfway, all the work, all the effort, all the communication and culture itself would go halfway. So it just simply explains that if sexual harassment really in the center and the red, obviously we talk about other policy involved in the second circle, whistleblowing protection, integrity, non-retaliation, and confidential. If we don't have that thing really exist at some point, anything we talk nicely about it would not exist. And the overall circle out here is any other employment policy that relating to this, relating to what I mentioned earlier about abuse of power. They are all related. So unfortunately, if you really want to do this, it's really good time for you to look at overall of your labor internal regulation and make it work. Finally, culture is strategy for breakfast. We all address it here. Every one of you would have your own term to coin your culture at your workplace. But we just came with very quick and brief one that some of the culture should not exist if we truly want to prevent sexual harassment. Culture of silence, culture of fear, culture of sentimental, like halfway, too emotional handling things, and culture of halfway tolerant. But two kind of term for culture we love to, and you already mentioned it, culture of empathy and learning culture, like I should address earlier. Why? Because what our finding is that the 4 types of organization culture, the first one would go with learning. And then if you learn well enough, you can self-correct it at your own place. And then you can make it a balance between social and economics, really an issue in the bottom line in any company. As we caught talking about profit-making company, we talk about economic. But every single decision we're making involve both social and economic, make it balance. And lastly, the best part is how to transform in a way you are not learning yet to where you want to be. So right now, what we're seeing in the learning part, if we don't learn well enough about the legal regulation, we don't understand our culture enough, we don't understand our people enough, we don't know our team enough. We're all the nice talking, just nice talking. So it's really important to start with learning culture. And if you truly keep it in that, any of the meeting like it will make more sense when you bring them back to your workplace and maybe want to do it more at the level of learning organization and culture that you want. So finally, I just want to briefly share, but this is how we're working and some of the work we were working and helping company. We would love to share this presentation for you if you're interested. But one of our work is really enjoy seeing our different company can make their own infographic and make their own policy in the way that learning culture really uphold. So thank you. And I would hopefully think that would give some suggestion, not the conclusion. So I would maybe call it end of today. And of course, you might have some other question come in your head later on. Please email us. Miss Lily over there, our boss. Yeah, she would take it and give it back to us. And one more thing we would like to share here is that as Respect Vietnam having some work with U.S. government, we also have some legal law education program in the practical way. We're not consulting legal. It's Baker McKenzie, where she, their job. But yeah, so we would like to share more of the work we do with company. And we hope that with the different way of doing, we would be able to do that. So if you have interest in labor law regulation and education for the workplace, let us know. Yeah, we would try to get more of the better work, better meeting and better seminar like this with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.